The first scream came from the cottonwoods by the creek, thin and frightened, like a bird caught in thorns. Thomas Calder dropped the saddle he was mending and ran, boots pounding the dirt, heart already racing with the knowledge that fear had a sound, and this was it. When he broke through the brush, he saw her crouched at the water's edge, arms wrapped around herself, dark hair tangled and wet, eyes wide with terror as if the world itself were about to strike her. She flinched when she saw him, shame and fear crossing her face so quickly it hurt to witness. And before Thomas could speak, before he could lift his hands to show he meant no harm, a small voice rang out behind him, clear and innocent as morning light. "Papa," the voice said, curious and unafraid, "is she my new mama?" Thomas froze. The woman froze. Even the creek seemed to pause, water whispering softly around the stones as if listening. Behind him stood his daughter, Lily, barefoot and bright-eyed, her sun-bleached hair falling into her face. She was only 6, too young to understand the weight of her words, too young to know how deeply they would cut and heal at the same time. The Apache woman's eyes filled with tears. She looked away, her shoulders trembling, and Thomas understood in that moment that whatever had brought her here had stripped her of more than just safety. It had stripped her of dignity. He turned slowly, kneeling to Lily's height. "Sweetheart," he said gently, "she's just someone who needs help." Lily nodded, satisfied, already stepping closer with the fearless kindness that only children possess. The woman shrank back, her breath hitching, her hands shaking as if she expected a blow. Thomas raised his palms and spoke softly, choosing his words as carefully as one chooses steps on a narrow ledge. He didn't know her language, and she clearly didn't know his, but kindness had its own way of being understood. He pointed to himself. "Thomas," he said. Then to Lily. "Lily." When he pointed to the woman, she hesitated before whispering a name so quiet it almost disappeared into the creek's murmur. Ayanna. That night, Ayanna sat by the fire at the edge of the ranch yard, wrapped in a spare blanket, eyes downcast, barely touching the food Lily insisted on bringing her. Shame clung to her like a second skin. She had been captured weeks earlier during a violent raid, taken from her people, passed between men who saw her as less than human. She had escaped only by luck and desperation, running until her legs failed and collapsing by the creek where Thomas found her. Now, safety felt unreal, like a dream she didn't deserve. The ranch house was modest, weathered by wind and sun, but warm with the smell of bread and wood smoke. Thomas slept lightly that night, listening for any sound of distress. He heard soft crying once and nearly rose, but the sound faded, swallowed by the darkness. In the morning, Lily bounded outside, carrying a wildflower she'd picked, holding it out to Ayanna with a grin missing 2 front teeth. Ayanna stared at the flower as if it were a miracle, then at Lily's open face, so trusting it made her chest ache. Slowly, she took it. Days passed, then weeks. Ayanna spoke little, but she helped where she could, mending clothes, grinding corn, tending the small garden. She moved carefully, always apologizing with her eyes, always bracing for anger that never came. The rancher's neighbors noticed her presence soon enough, and not all were kind. Whispers followed her in town, sharp looks and muttered words about danger and disgrace. Thomas stood tall beside her, answering every stare with silence and every insult with a steady gaze. Lily, blissfully unaware of prejudice, took Ayanna's hand whenever fear crept too close. One afternoon, trouble arrived on horseback. 3 men rode up, hard-eyed and armed, claiming Ayanna was property stolen from them. Fear flashed across her face, and she fell to her knees, shaking, shame and terror overwhelming her. Lily screamed and ran to her, wrapping her small arms around Ayanna's neck. "Don't take my mama," she cried, the words slipping out as naturally as breath. Thomas stepped forward then, a wall of resolve. His voice did not shake as he told the men to leave. When they laughed, he did not back down. The standoff was tense, the air thick with the threat of violence, but in the end, the men rode away, spitting curses, promising trouble. Thomas watched them go, knowing the danger wasn't over, but also knowing he would never forgive himself if he sent Ayanna away to protect his own comfort. That night, Ayanna finally spoke, halting words mixed with tears and gestures, telling her story as best she could. She expected rejection when she finished, expected Thomas to see her as broken or tainted. Instead, he listened without judgment. When she was done, Lily crawled into her lap and fell asleep, trusting and warm. Ayanna sobbed then, silently, holding the child as if holding onto life itself. The threats did come, but so did help. A few neighbors, moved by Thomas's courage and Lily's innocence, stood with them. Time softened wounds. Ayanna learned English slowly, finding her voice again piece by piece. She laughed for the first time one spring morning when Lily tried to help bake bread and covered herself in flour. Shame loosened its grip, replaced by something fragile and new, hope. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the land gold, Lily asked again, more gently this time. Ayanna, she said, can you be my mama? I know you don't have to. Ayanna looked at Thomas, fear flickering, then down at the child who had chosen her without conditions. She nodded, tears shining, and pulled Lily close. The ranch was never perfect, never free from hardship, but it became a place of healing. A place where a woman who had lost everything found dignity again. Where a child learned that family is built by love, not blood. And where a rancher learned that sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is stand still and open their door. Years later, people would remember the story differently, some as a tale of courage, others as a quiet miracle. But for Lily, it was simple. She had asked a question once, without knowing how powerful words could be. And in doing so, she had given 3 broken hearts a chance to become whole again.